Probably remember, but will you? Bill McDonald's the baddest that I would turn to. CEO with the shit that's a dope motherfucker. He'll always win. There's no going under. The top of the crown resting on his head. The beast is alive. He'll never be dead. If you dreamt before, bring it back to life. Push harder for it. Let us survive. Show courage and strength. It's okay to be scared, but don't let it stop you. Always stay prepared. Bill Showman School, they're just not beginning. Winners fucking win. Losers talk about winning.
Welcome to the Bearded Beast Show. My name is Bill, and I am the Bearded Beast. Today, an episode I've been waiting for a while. Our guest today, Coach Doc, Antonio Harrison. How you doing, Coach?
I'm good, man. Yourself?
Oh, I'm great. I'm super excited you're here. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Yeah, no problem. I got hyped hearing the intro music, and it definitely let me know out the gate, like, oh, cursing's going to be okay.
All right, so I went through your bio. I compiled some questions that I'd love to ask you. The majority of them are for myself because you've inspired me without you even knowing it. You've inspired me over the past probably 6 months of my life to better myself in health and fitness. So a lot of these questions are for me, things I want to know about you, but I do have some in there that some people have asked me to talk to you about that do know you. So can you, before we get into the questions, can you tell my listeners a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I'm from Pasadena, California, and I've been an athlete all my life since the age of 4 and had the great opportunity to play college football. Unfortunately, had a pretty rough injury, and that brought me back home to California. And from there, I started teaching and then ended up going to grad school. And after grad school, I was coaching high school football as a head varsity football coach, doing fitness instruction, teaching grad school. And that's led to me now kind of doing a lot of keynotes all over the nation, having my own podcast, as well as being a virtual reality fitness coach for an app called Supernatural. And it's just been a pretty crazy journey. I'm married with 3 kids and, just living life and living it to the best of my ability.
That's great because that's what we need to do, right? So many people just don't understand the concept of what there is out there. And that leads me into the question for you. I want to take you back to your childhood a little bit. What was it like growing up for you in Pasadena, California?
It was tough. When people read stories or watch documentaries about gang violence and the influx of crack cocaine in Los Angeles in the late 80s and early 90s, like that was real. And it wasn't just real in my neighborhood. It was real inside of my household. My dad was an addict who was in and out of jail. And I found out at 10 years old when my mom just couldn't come up with enough excuses of why our presents were being pawned or why dad had been gone for 3 days or a couple weeks because he was in jail, and she just couldn't lie anymore. So when she told the truth, well, now the cat's out of the bag, dad just started using inside the house. And I was put in a lot of, sketchy situations with a lot of unsavory characters. So I had to grow up pretty fast. There's no imaginary play and, G.I. Joes out in the front yard at 10 years old when that's the stuff that's going on. When that's what's happening, it's, let me do my stuff. Let me be on top of my school, my sports. Let me get out of the house as much as possible. And I got to be an adult and understand adult situations and things. So sports was my outlet. That was my safe haven. That was the place where I went to get away from the rest of the world and be with my friends and have fun. And I just happened to be really good at it.
Wow. So, that there are people out there who I believe probably have these same experiences that you are explaining right now, but maybe they never found that outlet or knew how to find an outlet or had some other resource to turn to. And, you're a living proof for everybody listening to this show right now that regardless of your past, it doesn't create your future, correct?
Yeah, not at all. I could have sulked and gone into a shell and just kind of shut everything down. But instead, I went out and just tried to pursue who I was and the things that were open and offered to me. Now, there was an opportunity to be, where the opportunities could have led to drugs, selling drugs, doing drugs, being in the gangs, or doing something more safe and playing ball that had more promise. Now, I will say, even though, my dad went through all of that, my mom and my dad instilled a lot of pride in me, and that I had so much potential and always praised me. And a lot of people, don't know, but me and my dad are like best friends. And part of that is he never lied to me. He owned all his shit, which gave me an opportunity to heal my way.
Yep.
It would have hurt more had he lied and tried to cover it up and say he was doing other things. And no, he just owned it, and he would apologize for it. And it allowed me to say, you know what, when my dad's using, that's not my dad. My dad's the guy who's taking me to the park, who's coaching me in basketball, who's loving me, who's taking me around everywhere he goes, and is so proud of his son and tells everybody how much he loves me and how great I am. That's my dad. That other dude, that's someone who's gotten snatched by the hooks of drugs. That's not my dad. So by telling me the truth, I got to decide how I healed instead of being force-fed a lie. Wow,
that's amazing. And I had some struggles with my dad growing up. He recently just passed away, last August, and I never really.
Sorry to hear that, man.
Oh, I appreciate it, and I wish I could turn back the clock a little bit. And this is very important about what you're saying, because I wish I would have understood where my dad was coming from when we had the struggles that we had. And I wish I could have seen the two different dads, like you're mentioning. And I never really got that opportunity. I wanted to, before he passed away, have a really good conversation with him, but things spiraled out of control a little bit too late. But I think everybody listening to this needs to really, really listen to what you're saying, because there's opportunities to maintain relationships that sometimes we just kind of throw away, but they're extremely important.
Yeah, and I maintained it by just looking at that other side of dad that I respected, but it wasn't even until I was an adult that I fully understood, where I decided on my podcast to do a 27 episode chronicling his life from as far back as he could remember to present day. And I brought in my sister, my brothers, my mom. He was obviously on every episode. And when I had heard his stories from his past before, but had never really heard it in chronological order from his childhood.
Yeah.
Once I heard that my father was one of 11 kids, and by the age of 12, he was living on his own, basically on the streets. Well, it made sense why he got into a life of crime and drugs. And I mean, what else could he do? He was trying to just survive. So it made more sense about the trajectory and path of his life, which made me understand him better as a person by having that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned some things about my dad too that I wish I would have known in my earlier years, that would have shown me that, I can see why sometimes he acts like he does, but I didn't find these things out sometimes, a little bit till it was too late. But I'm glad that that is so awesome that you guys you're like best friends now, and you were able to, discover that and discover the two sides of your dad. And can you mention your podcast for my listeners? Because I would love to go listen to that series.
Yeah, it's called Doc's Daily Dose. You can check it out on any of the, podcast platforms. It's all out there, but it's Doc's Daily Dose.
All right. I'm definitely going to check that out, because I'm really interested in hearing that series that you did with him. So let's go back to...
Just to say, if you want to hear the series, you scroll all the way to the very beginning of the podcast, and the series is called Like Son, Like Father.
Oh, okay.
And then after the series is what I do now, which is about 5 to 10 minutes, just reflections on things that happened throughout my week that I think are lessons for folks, and also give them a little homework if they want to do it themselves.
Do you do that daily, or is it weekly?
It comes out every Sunday morning.
Okay, perfect. All right, back to the age of 4. You said you were an athlete since the age of 4. It looks like you were a high school senior athlete of the year, college freshman athlete of the year, 4-year starter. You were a captain in college, 2-time all-conference.
Yep.
What were those days like?
Sports was everything. I mean, I started out as a swimmer, actually, and I made the Junior Olympics when I was, I want to say 6 or 7. And that was, I loved being in the water. I just loved the water. I loved that it was all on me. But swimming's an expensive sport, and we didn't grow up with money. So, unfortunately, once we made this Junior Olympics, or I made the Junior Olympics for the swim team. Someone went and bought the club, and they refurbished the entire swimming pool and our team club, and they raised the tuition, and my parents just couldn't afford it, and they weren't willing to, help out. So I switched over to basketball, which I had been playing as well since I was 4, but then I dedicated myself gung-ho to basketball, and I loved it, and playing flag football and on into high school. And high school, I had the opportunity to either take my shot at D1 for basketball or go play D3 college football. And unfortunately, I didn't have a very good experience in high school basketball in the sense of I just stopped loving the sport. I can blame it on coaches. I can blame it on us not being very good. But there was something about my ability to get my aggression out on the football field that I loved more than the non-contact of basketball, and the fact that I could go right in as a 17-year-old freshman and I had the opportunity to start. So that's what I did. I went to a 4-stoplight town in the middle of Iowa, Grinnell College, and from the very jump, I was out there on the football field playing the sport that I love, and the building the camaraderie that football brings that is, to me, second to none.
All right, what position?
In high school, I was quarterback and safety. In college, I was safety, so defense.
All right, I want to flip it back to basketball for a second because I have a question that I've been going back and forth with a few of my friends now, and
okay, cool.
All-time great. Do you have one?
Ooh. My favorite player of all time is Magic Johnson. And I will say, and I'll give my reason why I think he's the greatest basketball player ever. It's as a rookie in the NBA finals, to go from an established all-star level point guard to where one of the greatest players, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, goes down, and then you can go down to center and be the finals MVP because you put the team on your back. Someone who can play every single position on the court is the truest form of basketball you can ever imagine, in my opinion. Now, is he as great as winning, 2 3-peats as Michael Jordan, or the all-time, or what was the all-time leading scorer in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's got high school, college, and professional championships, or Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain? Maybe not. But Kareem couldn't play point. Magic or Michael Jordan, he wasn't playing center, even though he was dunking all over him. Magic Johnson not only made everyone else better, but in the moment, the biggest moment on the biggest stage for professional sports, went from one end of the spectrum at point guard all the way down to a center. And I haven't seen anyone else do that, man.
All right. So do you know who my answer always is?
Who?
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird was a bad boy. I'll give it to you.
It was so interesting you said Magic Johnson, because I'm sitting here thinking, well, wait a minute. Mine's Larry Bird. And those were the times in basketball right there.
Oh, I love that era of basketball.
The 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, and I won't even go to the talking about how things are so ticky-tack style and everyone's flopping and it's not aggressive anymore the way it used to be. I won't even mention that. The thing that I loved about that era of basketball was people got on a team and that was your team. Nobody was getting traded from team to team hunting for championships. No, they built something right there. And that's what team was. Now I look at my team, the Lakers, and every year I'm like, who's this starting five? I don't even know who these people are except for the superstars. And are they going to be gone mid-season?
Yeah, that was the greatness of back then. Plus, I like the physicality of it then. I just think that's all gone now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say I've heard all the stories about Larry Bird telling his opponent in the moment what he's going to do. I'm going to dribble right, spin left, and make a shot and do it. Like, man, you can't beat that. That's the type of stuff that you see in pickup basketball at the park or anywhere else. And to have that level of skill, Larry Bird was something else.
Yeah, I chose him, of course, because I grew up wanting to be like him. I always played basketball. I felt I had, maybe the same amount of athleticism Larry Bird did. He wasn't overly athletic, but I thought his basketball IQ was just one of the best. The way he saw the vision he saw on the court, the things he could do without being majorly athletic, just I wanted to play the game just like he did. And then I listened to some of these stories. I remember listening to the 3-point contest when he walked into the locker room and he asked everybody who was going to finish second.
Yeah, right? Like just that confidence, man. I love it.
All right, take me to your high school football coaching days. It was 16 years, right?
Yeah, 16 years. I just, not this, so I guess you would say this season just ended, but the last season was my last season. My oldest boy is about to start high school, and I want to watch him instead of coaching other people's children.
Wow.
And I've got 2 other boys, so, you know, they're going to be coming up right behind him, and my middle one's already playing tackle, and I just want to be there in the stands to support them. But I was starting grad school, and one of my biggest mentors, who was like a second father, was one of my high school coaches. And he was like, hey, we got a spot open for an assistant coach. Like, you want to come on and coach? And I did. And while we were there, we were horrible. And I was not happy. I had come from college football where, you know, we made it was a real program. And it just seemed like this team, this head coach, and not to put him down, but he was just there. He was just happy to be there. It wasn't about building anything with these kids. It wasn't about, you know, progressing, and it wasn't about what football really was to me. And I was getting fed up. That was probably going to be the last year I was going to coach, but the athletic director pulled me in and was like, I think we're going to let this guy go. Would you want to take this over? And I was like, yeah, I'm game. And I ended up being, I think, the 7th youngest in the nation and 3rd youngest head varsity football coach in the state of California.
Wow.
And when I started, I was horrible, man. Like, I was horrible. Like, I was old school. I was yelling and screaming in people's faces. I broke my headset every single season. And I had to, and at one point, kids were not coming out for the team in following years. And at one point, we had so few kids that as injuries were happening through the season, we were playing against Malibu. And 2 of our guys go down, and we're down to 12 guys, and you need 11 on the field. And my 12th guy was my kicker. And I looked at him and I was like, you ready to go in? And he was like, Coach, I'm not going in there. And we had to forfeit 3 games just to get healthy. Wow. And I was like, you know what? I need to take a look at myself and how I'm coaching and what I'm doing wrong. And within that off season, I was able to switch my coaching style, understand my players better, and turn the program around to where the very next season after forfeiting, we played for a league title for the first time in 10 years, beat our rival for the first time in 10 years, made the playoffs for the first time in 10 years, won a playoff game for the first time in 12. We also were the academic state champions, which meant we had the best GPA of any high school football team in the state of California. And I was named by the newspapers the LA County Coach of the Year. I ended up going one more year there, but it didn't seem like the accomplishments we had made was anything of interest for the school. They were more focused on the academic side, which I totally get it. I'm with it. But I also think that you have to have some balance in terms of arts and sports and music and creativity for kids. And so I ended up, stepping away after 7. And I had made really good friends with the rival head coach. And he was like, come coach with me. You can be co-head coach. And I was like, nah, I won't coach against my seniors. And 2 years after my guys were gone, he hit me back up, was like, you ready now? And it happened to be the same school my kids were going to because it was a K through 12. And I said, yeah. And so I went there for 8 years as the assistant head coach and defensive coordinator. And we played for those 8 years. We played for the league title, all 8, won 5 league titles, went through the playoffs. I mean, we're playing crazy amounts of teams in terms of higher divisions, and won another academic state championship, put a bunch of kids in college. Like, it was just a great experience.
Wow, that's awesome. So you had to switch up your coaching style. So let me hear a little bit about that for a minute, because you see some of these coaches, and they're very, very, very important and a pivotal part, like you were saying, to the players. Some Some maybe want to come back, and maybe they don't because they don't like the coaching style. Now, I've seen, coaches like Bobby Knight, for example, or, the coach like Bill Cowher, get right in your face, grab your face mask. So that sounded kind of like, maybe you were a little bit more like Cowher, but you switched it up. How did you change it?
Well, I realized, one, the way that I grew up playing sports, like, I was a different generation. That's what was expected going into it. The kids that I was coaching now, that's not what the world was anymore. That stuff wasn't appropriate. And you can say that you like it or don't like it, but that's just a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. Like, that the kids weren't responding to that. And so I had to say, you know what, I have to stop forcing them into my style of the way I did things and find out what works for them. And what I came to realize was, some players need a kick in the ass, some need a pat on the back, some need to be left alone, and some need a combination of the three. And so that's what I did. I got to know my players as individuals and know what worked best to motivate them. So right. the kid that needed me to kick him in the ass, I'd be on him. The kid who just needed some support and just know that I trust you to be out there, I'm going to give you that praise. And some of my best players are the ones who I don't need to tell them anything. I just tell them, go out there and do your thing, control my defense, run what you run. And they went out there and did it. So it really took a lot of reflection on me as a person and as a coach in order for me to be better for the people I was coaching.
So I think what you said there is very important, because I've been in management and a mentor for a very long time, and not everybody's personality is the same, right? You got to figure out, like what you said, what does this person need? What does this person need? So you need to wear a few different hats, and you need to dive into the head of your people or your players and figure out what exactly it is that they need, because you can't, even in management, you can't just have one management style and think that that's going to be okay for everybody. When you start to see turnover, it's probably because of you.
Yeah, it most definitely usually is. And one of the things that was the greatest thing I did was I kept my office door open. Kids would be up there every period of the day, and they may be studying, they may just be hanging out, they may be taking a nap on my couch because they didn't get to sleep last night because they had work or they had family issues or they had to study. And during practice, we're going through and doing all the stuff we had to do, but there are down moments where another coach is talking to kids or got them in the huddle. I'd be standing next to a kid, and instead of just constantly being in his ear about what he needs to do, I'll be like, hey, who are you going to prom with this weekend? Hey, I always see you reading a book. What are you reading? Oh, you like that? I'm going to bring you another one I think you might like. How's things going at home? Like, I see you getting bigger and stronger, man. You've been hitting the weight room, or like, hey, you doing okay? You seem a little sluggish. You been getting enough food today? Like, I think a lot of educators and coaches have to realize, like, yes, our job is to provide that skill set and provide that information and knowledge, but our first job is to understand who they are as people. Yeah. Like that kid in class who's sleeping through your class, it may not be because he doesn't like you or thinks your class is boring. It may be because after school, he's got to go to a second job to help his parents pay the rent, and he's exhausted. Right? Like, understand that before you think that someone's disrespecting your craft.
Right. A lot of times we don't take that time to really learn more about them personally. We just think they need to show up to a job or to school or to the football field and do what we tell them they're supposed to do. But we really need to take that time and learn more about what they have going on in their life, because, especially today. I mean, today is very challenging. I got one of my sons has graduated, but I have another son in school, and it's not like today's day is not like when I went to school. I can tell you that.
At all. And that's the thing, is once you get to know people as who they are as individuals instead of what they can do for you, man, they'll run through a brick wall for you.
Yes, they
because
will.
They know you actually give. They know you actually give a damn about them and not just what they can do for you.
But we're only as good as the people we have around us. And I don't, so many of these mentors, managers, coaches, they don't realize that. I'm only as good as the people I surround myself with in my business and with what I do. And if I don't take care of those people and I have constant turnover, my business is not going to succeed the way that I want it to.
Yeah, I often get to do consultation for companies and come in, and one of the greatest tips I share with managers or supervisors is, because they're one of the big things they're always talking about is, I'm constantly putting out fires and this person's not doing this and that. And I always tell them, well, first off, get your ass out of your office, take a walk around the floor, catch somebody doing something they're supposed to be doing and doing it well. Take 30 seconds to go, hey, Bill, I see that you've been doing this and doing it well. I just want to say thank you for your efforts, man. Like, you have no idea how much that helps our company grow. And, maybe even if, as this continues, I might want you to show some other people, but just know that I see you and I appreciate you. And then walk the hell away. Do you know what that'll do for that person?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And all that took was 30 seconds of you getting out of your office, going to see someone doing something, doing their job the way they're supposed to, feeling valued and appreciated. No one does that. Instead, we walk around, micromanage, or wait till a fire's there and then come down on people's necks.
Right. Most time they see you coming and they're like, oh, no, what did I do wrong? Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'll take, I'm pretty proud of myself in that aspect, that I let my people know every single day how much I appreciate what they do. But also, I never sit in my office.
Nice.
I work right on the front line with my guys. I'll do whatever job it is that I'm asking somebody else to do, because I feel like, why should they do it if I wouldn't be willing to do it myself?
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
Before we move on from a little bit of the football conversation, can I ask you a Super Bowl question?
Yeah, man.
What do you think about the call, the end of the game?
It can go either way. You can say, let them play, this is the Super Bowl, or you can say, hey, there's a bit of a jersey pull there. But I don't think that was the deciding factor in the game. You can say it was the field, you can say it was this or that. I mean, that's what happens in any sports. Those moments happen. If you don't get yourself in that situation, it's not a problem. I think the biggest play of the game was Jalen Hurts not properly switching hands from his left to his right, trying to run and fumbling in that return 6, that fumble recovery. That doesn't happen, it's a whole different ball game. And that happened because he didn't do the proper fundamentals in terms of switching the way he's supposed to switch hands with the football. So I don't even give too much credence or credit to that final call. That other play where he fumbled the ball and they took that thing in for 6, that was the game changer right there to me.
See, and I agree with you, because at that point, KC hadn't been able to stop Philly really at all.
At all. And they go down and score again. Oh, it's a lot tougher game for KC to get back into.
Right. So I totally agree, and I bring that up a lot, and nobody really wants to hear that. They're too focused on the last 2 minutes or whatever it was of that Super Bowl and that call being called.
Yeah, and a lot of people also don't recognize that, like, switching hands with the ball, that is something we teach, and there is a proper technique to do that, and he didn't do it. Had he utilized the proper technique, that ball possibly doesn't come out, and they've got another play.
Yep. All right, tell me more about Coach Doc. How did Coach Doc come about?
So after coming home from college and my knee injury, ended up going to grad school, and then as I'm now coaching high school football, I've got my doctorate, and I'm just kind of creating different content and things. I realized, I wanted to kind of have I don't want to say a persona, but I wanted a name for myself outside of Antonio because of all the different things I do. And Coach Doc just kind of fit because I was a coach, but I was also a doctor, and I wasn't the typical PhD who does what everyone else does. So I just created Coach Doc, and that's what I came up with. And I've ran with it ever since. And once I got the opportunity, so I use it for podcasts, I use it for blogs and YouTube channels. And then once I got the opportunity to be in VR fitness, and they're like, well, so do you want just to be Coach Antonio? And I was like, no, can we use Coach Doc? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so, now it's becoming bigger than I ever imagined.
I love it, man. And I'm not going to mention that virtual fitness program, but Coach Doc is my favorite.
I appreciate you, brother.
Hey, does Coach Doc believe in the law of attraction?
I do, but not in the way that I think other people do. I don't think that you can sit around and just visualize or repeat mantras and hope that things just fall in your lap.
You got to do some work,
I think
right?
that, yeah, you got to put in the actionable steps, right? Like, yes, I can visualize, I can do the mantras, but then I have to go out and do the things and see the opportunities being brought to me. I can't just sit on my couch, eat a bunch of pizza, and wish for $1 million, right? Like, I need to go do something. And with those visualizations, those mantras, what they do is make you more aware and open to the things that are coming your way when you're out there doing things. Your eyes are open, your ears are open, your heart's open. And that's where you start to attract things. And I do believe that, energy, frequency, vibration of what you're putting out comes back to you. And that's in part because you're putting it out and it's coming back to you, but also in putting it out, it's really hard for negative energy to be around a bunch of positive energy. It can't live. So you're not around it yourself. You just focus on the things that you're trying to do. So I do believe in it. Just, I go the extra step of action to that.
Yeah. And I love what, one of my mentors always says, Ed Milet's his name. And he always says that you can't achieve what you don't believe. Right. So until we believe that we can actually do something, our chances of achieving it are probably slim.
And the other part of it too, I think, is patience, man. We live in such an instant gratification world. We want everything right now, right now, right now. I was just in Florida giving a talk at a leadership summit, and I was talking to this young lady who's got this vision and a bunch of different entrepreneurs who want to make everything happen now. And I was telling them, I published my first scientific article in 2013. It's 2023, and I'm being asked to talk about that stuff now, 10 years later. By 2014, had I go, oh man, no one cares about this, I'm gonna stop doing my thing and just switch gears, I wouldn't have been up there yet. I wouldn't have been up there the other day, right? So I just kept doing what I was doing and believing in what I believed in and what I felt I should be doing, and kept going that direction. And it unfolded, not on my time, but on the time that it was supposed to.
Yes, and I always tell people to be aggressively patient, right?
Yes.
So don't just be patient and sit around and think it's going to fall in your lap. You still have to be aggressive and go after the things that you want, but you have to be patient knowing it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take time. I mean, businesses, whatever it is you're trying to achieve, they take time. And the first, you know how many businesses start and they fail, right? Start and they fail.
Yep.
But it's through the failures that we actually learn the most.
Very much so. And you see all the examples of the people who end up getting, I won't say lucky, but end up having things fall in their lap or opportunities come immediately. Let's just take a lotto winner. All of a sudden, you went from having no money to having $300 million. They're in bankruptcy within 3 years.
Yeah, because
they didn't put in the work.
Right. They didn't know what it took to get there, and they didn't know what how to handle it once they got it.
Exactly.
All right, I got a couple questions left for you. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, one superpower. So this is going to sound kind of ridiculous, and maybe it's similar to Thanos' power, but I would want the power of destruction because it would require the discipline not to.
Wow. That's pretty deep. I like that answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I've been asked this question before, and I gave it real thought. And I want the power to be able to destroy any possible thing. I'm a true believer in, I'm peaceful because I'm capable of violence.
Wow.
Right. I'm not peaceful in the sense that I'm weak and that I can't. I'm peaceful by choice.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that answer. All right, if you could give me a favorite memory, what would it be?
Favorite memory? Anything in the world?
Yep.
Oof. Favorite memory.
Is it your football days, school days, podcast with your dad?
No, I won't say that there's a very specific memory that stands out. I'll say it's something that unless you've experienced it, you won't understand it, and it's happened multiple times for me. And that is when you're playing in a football game and you hear the crowd roaring, the ball snapped, and all of that noise dies down, and you're locked in and focused, and you're seeing all this movement slow down in front of you. The ball's thrown, and as the receiver catches it, you just hear a crash of pads and light this guy up. And in that moment, you hear a gasp like, and then it gets dead silent from their side cheering to your side erupting. That, like, just describing that gave me chills all over my body right now.
I was just going to tell you the same thing. You gave me chills.
Like, I wrote a paper on that in college, and like that thing to me was just like, you could just feel the switch of emotions, intensity, and you just feel in that moment that you are the most unstoppable force on the planet.
You know, when you were saying that, I had this whole vision. It was like I was watching a real football game. When you were telling me this, when you were telling me what you just told me, I heard the crowd. Then everything went silent, and I watched the whole play develop right in front of me.
It's the best feeling ever. It's the thing I was known for because, like I'm not some people think I'm a bigger dude or muscular, but like I don't consider myself a big guy, but that was what I was known for in football was I would take your head off. I'd come 100 miles per hour with zero fear or hesitation, and I had bad intentions because guys like Ronnie Lott, Troy Polamalu, John Lynch, those were my guys. So like I followed suit with them, and I was within the rules of the game. I was trying to make you feel every single pound that I had. And so that just, that's my moment. That's the thing that I love.
I was going to mention those players before you said their name.
Yeah, Sean Taylor. I love guys who just came flying downhill, and here's this little dude with packing all this punch who just has no fear of who you are.
I'll tell you who my favorite player all time was, and he started as a corner, finished as a safety, but it was Rod Woodson.
Oh, wonderful player. Totally feel that.
All right. If you could give a younger Antonio some advice, knowing everything you know today, everything you've learned, what would you tell him?
I tell him it's going to be okay. I tell him also to appreciate the people you have and to be a little more humble in the beginning years. But my ultimate advice would be, it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right. Just keep doing what you're doing. Because a lot of times growing up, I just didn't know what the next day brought, where the next meal came from, what my life was going to turn out to be. And so just telling them, like, don't worry, you're going to be okay.
That's some great advice. What's next for Coach Doc?
Well, right now I'm working on kind of beefing up my YouTube channel to do some pretty cool things. I've been working on a book, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy with where things are in my life, and my kids again getting older and just being there and being a part of their life with my family. But I think my ultimate driving vision at the end of the day is I want to buy a huge plot of land and build homes all over the land for each one of my family members, far enough away on the land so that you can't see house to house, but close enough that you can take a golf cart from one house to the other and all meet up for Sunday dinner. So that's my big vision that I want, in my life.
That's good stuff. Well, Coach Antonio, Coach Doc, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom and your advice with all my listeners. Would there ever be a chance we could get you back on?
Oh, anytime, man. I love chopping it up, and I'd greatly appreciate you having me. So anytime you want to talk again, you just let me know, whether it's me, sports, work, doesn't even matter. I live for these moments, and I'm a firm believer that relationships are everything. So I put all my currency in people.
Everything. Yes, I agree with you. Relationships are everything. If we ain't got relationships, what do we got?
Right.
All right, my friend. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I wish you the best of luck, and I will be in touch. I'd love to have you back on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
You too.
I'll be remembered, but will you? Bill McDonald's the baddest that I would turn to. CEO with the shit that's a dope motherfucker. He'll always win, there's no going under. The top of the crown resting on his head. The beast is alive, he'll never be dead. If he dreamt before, bring it back to life. Push harder for it, let us survive. Show courage and strength, it's okay to be scared, but don't let it stop you, always stay prepared. Build someone's school, they're just not beginning. Winners fucking win, losers talk about winning.